What's going on, everyone? Welcome into episode 11 of the EFIS. I'm Zach Hummel, filling in for Justin, and I'm joined by Nate Brown. What's going on, Nate?
How's it going?
Pretty good. We had some, really sad news in baseball these past 2 weeks. We've been on hiatus from the podcast. Last Sunday, unexpectedly, obviously, Jose Fernandez, the Marlins' 24-year-old pitcher, died in a boating accident really early in the morning. And, it sent shockwaves through Major League Baseball. It kind of filled up the headlines all of last week. And the entrance to this podcast, Justin Ledger put together a great little mixture of all the sights, sounds about Jose Fernandez and how people felt about him and how sad of a loss it really is, not just for baseball, obviously, but for the Cuban community in Miami because he's such a big part of it. What were your initial thoughts hearing about that? It kind of just blew me away.
I mean, at first, whenever you hear news like that, you don't want to believe it. So my first reaction was just not believe it. And then the more I started hearing about it, the more real it got. And it hit real hard. It hit real hard. I mean, I had trouble watching all of the major sports networks the next day. And it was just, at first, when I realized that it was true, that's when all the memories start pouring in of Jose and just the type of person he was. And all I kept thinking about was from 2000, I think it was 2013, when Tulowitzki hit that line drive right back at him. And I just kept thinking about that, and that smile. It was just, it's real tragic, and it's something that you never want to hear, and it's something that it's going to take a while for the community, not only of baseball, but like you said, of Miami, and just everyone that knew the pitcher. It's going to take a long time.
Yeah, the Marlins actually canceled their game Sunday after hearing the news. It happened late Saturday night. It looked like his boat capsized. He and I think 3 other people died. It's so sad too because his girlfriend just had a kid with him, and his grandmother was getting to watch him play. And it's not like he was just some other player. He was definitely an out of this world talent. Like you said, he had this like incessant love for the game and passion that a lot of players don't have anymore. And it was great to see it in that Tulowitzki gift. That's one thing about what's great about social media. When someone passes away, people will post, vines and gifs and videos that will really just bring back old memories of what you have of Fernandez. He had a chance to definitely be one of the best pitchers in the MLB. He was definitely on his way already. It just caught everyone by storm. And we can talk about the game when the Marlins got back to playing. I think it was Monday night versus the Mets. I mean, I get the Mets where I live in Connecticut, and I obviously tuned in the pregame ceremony, and there wasn't a dry eye in my house. Just losing a teammate like that, not even a teammate, he was a friend to a lot of these guys, and he was, the quasi-leader of that team along with Giancarlo Stanton. Everyone was crying. It was just an emotional, and it was tough for the Mets too because that game meant a lot to them versus the Marlins. They were still at that time in the wild card race, and they respectfully, held everything together. And Cespedes, obviously being a Cuban guy, that whole pregame ceremony and postgame ceremony, and D. Gordon hitting that home run off the bat was really crazy. That game was unreal to watch, really.
I mean, like D. Gordon said, like I also at the time I didn't believe in anything like divine, really. But like he said, if you never believed in divine intervention or a greater being, that was a perfect night that could change your thoughts on that, because there was something there. There was some divine intervention. I 100% believe it, and it felt too right, and it was just something special. And that's another reason why sports is the best way to heal. And it was really special, and with the ceremony and everything, it was just. They couldn't have been more perfect for a tragedy.
Yeah, I think you put it perfectly. Like getting back to sports, getting back to normalcy. Obviously, when all of his teammates heard the news, they were probably flabbergasted. They were probably speechless. Probably a lot of them broke down. But getting back on the field, things felt right again. Things felt normal. And I think after your first bit of sadness after hearing the news, I think all of his teammates realized Jose would have wanted them to play. He loved baseball. There's not anything in his life he loved more than that. He even, threatened his own life coming over to America from Cuba
4
to
times.
play baseball in the major leagues. Yeah. And that story of him saving, it turned out to be his mother in the water, but he didn't know who it was at the time. And he jumped into the water not knowing who it was he was just saving another Cuban citizen trying to make a better life for himself in Miami. And the stories coming out about Fernandez and how many people he touched across MLB, including, our own David Ortiz here in Boston. He was crying during the ceremony that the Red Sox had. So, yeah, it's just a crazy story, crazy thing that happened. Just shows you how precious life really is.
And also about saving his mother and not knowing who it was at first. It just really mirrors the image that Jose kind of gave off. I mean, he was a very selfless person, and he was always willing to help others, and that's what was most important to him, it seemed like. I mean, like Pedro Gomez said, like, you're not going to find a player who's more involved with the community, and the community that he's in, it's a Hispanic-speaking community with a lot of Cubans, and it's a lot of people, they looked at him for national pride and just heritage.
Yeah.
It was much more than just a player that we look up to. It was a player that...
Yeah, I think it hit us, our age range, weird because we're 24, 25, 23, and he's our age. He's the kind of guy we look up to in the game. Be like, oh, he might be making baseball fun again, just the way he strikes people out and he gets pumped even in regular season games. Baseball needs more players like Jose, and, obviously he's lost way too early. So you have anything more to say about Jose? I mean, we could spend the whole time going it, but we do have the end of the season coming up, so...
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much done because, like you said, this conversation going on forever, just talking about memories of Jose, and it's going to take a while to get over.
Yeah, it's crazy how he's so young and we still have so many memories of him, just in the majors. It's the little things with Jose that made him great. Just his, his child incessance for the game. It kind of brought everyone back to playing Little League and whatnot. So, yeah, I guess we'll move on. It's going to be tough, but we have the season ending today, actually. So we have our postseason awards. We'll start in the AL, and we'll kind of go through, and we'll see if we agree on a lot of these picks. We'll start with AL MVP. We have a candidate here in Boston. We have Mookie Betts. Who do you think should win it this year?
Well, so I go back and forth. When you think of MVP, do you think of the best player or the player that helped out his team the most? Because if you're thinking about the player that helped out his team the most, I would obviously say Mookie Betts. But when you look at the numbers, I think the person that had the best season in the AL was actually probably Mike Trout.
Mm-hmm. So you're going with Mike Trout?
Well, I'm not going with him. I don't think he's going to win it. But when you talk about the best player, that's who I would go with. But MVP has to be from a winning team or a team that is always in contention and really helped them out. So I'm going to go with Mookie Betts. But just when you look at Mike Trout's power numbers and his speed, he has 29 stolen bases this year, which is ridiculous to go along with 29 home runs, and he's batting over 300. So, I mean, best season, I go Mike Trout, but with MVP, I'd go Mookie.
Yeah, I'm not a big stats guy. I'm not into sabermetrics and all those advanced stats. I actually obviously we're Red Sox fans, so we watch a lot of the games. We see Mookie Betts play every day. I just think he's the best player in baseball. Most valuable to his team, like you said. I don't know where the Red Sox would be without him. He's hit so many big home runs, and just his on-base percentage and all that. Mike Trout is definitely good. His team definitely did not have a great year. Not that everyone thought they were going to, but I would go with Mookie Betts as well. Just from the eye test, watching him day in and day out, I just think he was the best player on every team that came in every game that the Red Sox played this year.
And just low-key, his defense, I mean, it's also kept us in with his outfield assists and everything, which is another thing that when people are looking at rookie or MVPs, like, they always look at offensively. And, like, that's why I also don't think that granted, it's Ortiz's last season. It would be awesome if he won MVP, but it's just having a DH as an MVP, I think it has to be both ways. I think you have to have it offensively and defensively.
Yeah, I think that's why Trout and Betts are at the top of the list. And a couple other names you could throw in. Altuve's had a great season for the Astros. Donaldson, obviously, for the Blue Jays. But I think it's definitely going to be between Betts and Trout. I think we both have Betts, favoring a little bit just because he's been so important to the Red Sox run this year. We can move over to the National League MVP. This race is a little more crowded, I think. I think you could pick from 4 or 5 guys just depending on, if you're a stat guy or who's most important to the team, kind of like what we have with the AL. Who do you have NL MVP this year?
I have Chris Bryant. Just the offensive numbers that he's putting up, and he's hitting for average, and just with the team that he's helped out so much. I mean, he's a huge reason why the Cubs have won over 100 games. I'm going with Chris Bryant, and he's just also just a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, he's that classic like power third baseman. He's kind of a throwback in that sense. He plays a good
Yep.
third base, and he's got the power numbers to go along with it. Yeah, Bryant is at the top of my list too. Another name you could throw. I think if the Rockies had a better season, I think Arenado would have been near the top as well. He's just put up unreal stats, but they've kind of fallen off the earth. Daniel Murphy from the Nationals too, even from Rizzo from the Cubs. But yeah, I think clear-cut Bryant's the MVP, and not a strong MVP class for the NL, to be honest. Usually Bryce Harper's at the top as he's had a down season. So I think consensus would say Bryant would win it.
I agree.
We can move over to Cy Young now in the AL. This one's interesting. Not too many great pitchers this year in the AL. A lot of injuries and whatnot. We have a candidate from the Red Sox, Porcello. He's been unreal this year after, everyone had low expectations coming in from last season. Who do you have for AL Cy Young?
I have to go with Rick Porcello. I mean, not just because I'm a Sox fan, just because you look down the list. I mean, you got Kluber, who was injured, and Porcello. I mean, he has 22 wins. If you look at it, he has almost over 25% of the Red Sox, or over 20% of the Red Sox wins. And coming back from the season that he had last year, it's tough to look away from that. It's tough to shy away from the turnaround that he's had, and just he's on one of the top teams in the MLB, and that he's just meant so much to the Red Sox success. So I'm going to go with Rick Porcello.
Yeah, it's definitely probably a popular choice. Kind of an unreal candidate. If anyone had odds on that entering the season, Porcello to win Cy Young, I mean, you would have won a lot of money.
Well, actually, I was looking at the futures for if you were to put $1 on Mookie Betts and Rick Porcello. So if you had Mookie Betts winning MVP and Rick Porcello winning the Cy Young, and you parlayed them for futures, a $1 bet would get you $50,000.
Jeez. So that just kind of tells you how the Red Sox season has gone. Everyone expected Betts to have a good season, not MVP caliber.
Yeah.
And Porcello has been kind of out of the blue. He's kind of been dealing this year out of nowhere after what we saw last year. So that's crazy. I mean, I would have loved to have the foresight to bet that. But actually, I'm not going with Rick Porcello for Cy Young in a weird twist of events. Obviously, he's been great this year. Again, I'm an eye test guy. I know he has the wins and the ERA. I'm going to go with the closer. I'm going to go with Zach Britton from the Orioles. Every time he comes into the game, I just think it's over. Maybe it's because I'm so hurt from the Red Sox closing situation. Kimbrel blew one again last night. I just think having a closer that can shut it down every time he comes into the game is so valuable, especially in this, baseball environment. Everyone puts a big bullpens are very important. So I think Zach Britton with the Orioles, he's been lights out. 97 sinker. No one can hit it. Every time he comes in, the game's over. I just think Zach Britton, I know he hasn't had the innings and he's not your typical Cy Young winner, but I just can't put Rick Porcello as my Cy Young. I just can't draw myself to do it, even though he'll probably win the award.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's crazy to think about how our perception of like who should win Cy Young has changed over the years, because back in the 70s and the 60s, as much as they do now, because now with all the limiting pitches, keeping an eye on pitchers' arms, and just really being careful, like there's
the inning limit and stuff.
Yeah, there's a huge emphasis on the bullpen now, which is it's pretty cool to think that now the Cy Young is going to be more widely looked at in terms of types of pitchers that are winning it.
Yeah, so you have Porcello, I have Britton. We'll see how that goes. NL Cy Young, it's kind of similar to the AL. There's not maybe a clear-cut candidate. A couple Cubs guys could go for it. You have Scherzer from the Nationals, Syndergaard from the Mets. Who do you have winning the Cy Young in the NL?
I would say Scherzer.
Scherzer, yeah.
I mean, I would go with like Hendricks, but then you look at John Lester too, and it's just so many weapons, and just the success that the Nationals have had they don't have as many pitchers as the Cubs do. I mean, they have Rourke and Strasburg and Scherzer, but then Cubs all the way down their line rotation. They have arms, and it's
Yeah.
I mean just with the type of year that the Nationals are having, with like Bryce Harper not performing as well. I mean, they need people to step up, and I mean Scherzer always steps up, but he stepped up in a big way this year, I think.
Yeah, Scherzer. I definitely think Scherzer should win it. Just his innings, he pitches like 220 innings every year, no matter what. He's ironclad, and I think he's one of those pitchers that's actually worth the money, not like David Price actually. So I just think the way he'll take the ball every fifth day is good enough to win the Cy Young in the NL. What would be a cool move would be giving it to Jose Fernandez. I know a lot of people would probably not think that's a good idea because this award actually means a lot to a lot of these players, but I just think losing a player of that caliber this early in his life, I just think they could give it to him this year, and it would be a good, memorial of, his career and his short time in the MLB, but how much he left a message for, all the pitchers coming up and saying you can show emotion, you can pitch with some flair that we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, that would be special. I agree. That would be really nice.
Yeah. We'll go to Rookie of the Year now. NL, I think it's pretty clear cut. You have a couple candidates. My guy Trevor Story would have been there. He got injured. He would have gave Seager a great run for his money, but I have Kyle Seager, the Dodgers. Who do you have?
Yep, I have Seager also.
Yeah, I mean, he would be he's in the NL MVP talk with some people. He's definitely in the top 10, so I think he definitely has to win Rookie of the Year. Another guy, Trey Turner, he's had a good couple months ever since he came up, but again, he hasn't quite had the at-bats going into the season. So is there anyone else that sticks out to you, NL Rookie of the Year?
I mean, like you said, the only other person that sticks out is Trey Turner to me, but again, I'm all about playing a full season and getting the at-bats and plate appearances and going through the grind. So I'd have to go with Seager as well because I can't imagine. I can imagine it happening just because of the type of numbers he's putting up, but I don't necessarily agree with it.
Yeah,
to Trey.
I totally agree. I think Seager will win it pretty easily, unanimously. We'll go over to the AL Rookie of the Year. We have one pitcher that's probably at the top, Michael Fulmer from the Tigers, but fucking Gary Sanchez of the Yankees came up and just has been mashing. I would have him winning it just because what he's done is kind of unheard of. I know he doesn't have the at-bats, and we just made a case for someone who didn't have the at-bats not winning it, but I think in Sanchez's case, he deserves it. Fulmer's been kind of bad in September. He's got a over 5 ERA, so I put some stock into how you finish the season because those are the biggest games you'll be facing. So who do you have?
I mean, kind of like the MVP, I think Gary Sanchez is going to win it just because, like you said, the numbers that he's putting up. But I also don't necessarily think that it should be given to someone that hasn't played a full season and gone through the wear and tear and the grind because that's, like you said, finishing strong, but that's also what Michael Fulmer is going through right now. He's hitting a wall. I mean, you can tell that he's breaking down a little bit. I mean, but from a rookie, you don't necessarily expect them to be able to last a whole season because it's completely different and it's not something they're used to. Granted, I'm not saying it's okay to do, and I'm not giving him an excuse, but I'm saying that like it's a little expected, and I don't think that the Tigers would be there without Fulmer. And
yeah, that's true.
So,
that's true.
So I mean, I would like to see Fulmer win it, but I think Gary Sanchez is gonna.
Yeah, I think if Sanchez didn't win it this year, next year would technically be his rookie year, so he'll probably win it that year, and he'll probably maybe be in the MVP race as well. So we'll see how that works. It's pretty much the old baseball guys who have to think you have to have a certain number of at-bats to win Rookie of the Year. And Fulmer, like you said, he's been so good for the Tigers. They definitely wouldn't be where they were without him because their rotation kind of falls apart after Verlander. So, yeah, I think I think Fulmer should win it, but Sanchez probably will just because of his numbers. We'll go to NL Manager of the Year. I never really liked Manager of the Year award because it just goes to the team that's pretty much won the most games or maybe had the biggest turnaround. I would probably go Dusty Baker with the Nats because they had all that turmoil inside their clubhouse with Matt Williams, and he kind of turned the ship around, kind of steadied it. There's a lot of big personalities in that locker room. When you had Papelbon and Harper getting into it midseason, Harper's obviously a huge personality. You have Scherzer, you have Strasburg. Couple injuries too they had to deal with. I would give it to Dusty Baker for winning the NL East with what he's had to go through.
I mean, I like Dusty Baker, but I'd like to see also Joe Madden win it.
Yeah,
I've always been a huge fan of Joe Madden. I mean, he was one of those managers that you hate to play against just because you respect him so much and you really think that he's a great manager. And just, I mean, all those team bonding videos and things that weren't going viral that he's done, it makes you appreciate
Yeah,
it, especially
costume parties and whatnot.
exactly. And it makes you appreciate it, especially more with how successful they're doing. Because I mean, when he was doing it with Tampa back when they were awful, it was just kind of like this is a joke. But then like when he's
Yeah,
doing it with a team and he's having them win games and possibly one of the best teams in the MLB, and I mean you can easily see him in the World Series. And I just think that he's a mastermind that likes to have fun. That's the way I look at it. And I think, I mean, I could easily see him taking away with NL Manager of the Year, but as well as Dusty
yeah.
Baker.
Yeah, I think Baker's in it. Madden's in it. Madden probably should win it just because the way the Cubs have blown everyone out of the water. They were
Yeah.
the best team in baseball the whole season, which you don't say a lot of the time during the midseason. And then another candidate, Dave Roberts with the Dodgers. I mean, I think they did better than anyone thought they would, especially with their lineup. If you look up and down their lineup, they don't have a lot of great hitters, and they started to run away from the Giants with the NL West title. So I think Dave Roberts has to also be in it after his first year at the team and Mattingly leaving. So those are probably your three biggest candidates, with Madden probably having the strongest resume to go along with that. We'll hop over to the AL now. Interesting. I think this is one of the most the close-knit awards here. I would probably go with Francona just because of the Indians.
I would too.
Think he's done a lot with that team. He's had to deal with Salazar and Carrasco getting injured, and they won the AL Central for the first time in I don't know how many years. I think Jeff Bannister also has to be up there. I'm not voting for John Farrell. I still don't trust that guy worth a damn. So I would probably go with Francona. What do you got?
I would go with Francona too, but I was actually I opened up a little bit to the possibility of John Farrell, not because I think that he's actually the manager of the year or an amazing manager, but people are saying with his bad decisions that he's made during games and some of the questionable lineup changes, he still found a way to win the division. I mean, he's probably going back saying, wow, like I really messed up there. I really messed up there. Then he comes back and he puts together these winning streaks with this team. And it's just kind of like, I think he is the winningest coach that gets shat on the most. Because, I mean, like
definitely in Boston for sure.
Like everyone like gets on his case, and yet he's still winning games. But every time we lose, apparently it's his fault. I mean, I like to think that a lot of the times it is his fault. And people say like, oh, if we had another manager, imagine how many more wins the Sox would have. But like, he's did a lot of damage control with himself. He's damaged the team quite a bit, but he's also limited the damage that he's done by making some good managerial decisions. But that's not manager of the year worthy, though. I still have to go with Terry Francona, like you said, but I just wanted to say that I opened up a little bit to John Farrell.
Yeah, you kind of got that off your chest. I know he takes a lot of heat in Boston. If you listen to the 2 to 6 show on the Sports Hub with Felger and Maz, they kill him every day. Anytime he makes a bad bullpen decision or he pinch hits for a guy, and they make fun of him every time they're in a National League ballpark and he tries to make a double switch. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you can't fight the results. This team went from worst to first, and that in itself is pretty impressive. It's tough with managers because you decide whether it's the talent kind of bringing the manager up or it's the manager kind of up enhancing the talent. I think with Joe Madden, it's a little bit of both, but I think with the Red Sox, the talent kind of almost lifts John Farrell up, so it makes some of his decisions look better. But yeah, Francona, I think, is the clear-cut guy. Another guy, Buck Showalter. Not that the Orioles, went through this huge transformation, but keeping that team with the pitching they have disgustingly bad pitching, and he has them in another playoff race, probably going to be in the wild card. So I think Buck Showalter should also get some votes for AL Manager of the Year,
especially with a team that only produces runs when they hit home runs too.
Yeah, seriously, that team is an enigma, and he wins with it. So another team with a good bullpen. I think we're going to hop over to Ortiz now. We can start discussing his retirement tour, which is coming to an end. Last regular season game in Boston today, probably will be pretty emotional. I mean, it hasn't quite hit me yet. I don't know if it's one of those things that we made the playoffs, so it won't hit me. But when he takes his last at bat of the season, maybe it will hit me. I think today they're doing a big ceremony. They did one last night. They had the whole fucking Celtics team out there, and they had Bobby Orr, and they're honoring him with some of the Patriots guys. It's kind of crazy what they're going through the motions, but the Red Sox love doing that shit. What are some of your best memories of David Ortiz? Because we're both Sox fans here.
My best memory of David Ortiz. I mean, there's so many to go through. I mean, he was the one that really lifted the team in 2004, and just the thing that I'll remember the most though is not necessarily. Well, I'll always remember his clutch hits, his huge games that he's had, but I just keep remembering the friendship with him, Pedro, and Manny. I mean, that's what really got me to become the avid fan that I am today. I just, like, 2003 and 2004, that friendship, that really made me understand that baseball is supposed to be fun, and it's supposed to be about, winning games with your friends. And it's much more than just a team. It's a family, and it's just kind of like, that's the type of mentality that David Ortiz has brought even to this team this year. And it's just, it's much more than a game. It's much more than just a team. It's bonding with brothers, and that's something that I always think of when I think of Ortiz.
Yeah, similar to Fernandez, I feel like we could do a whole podcast on Ortiz, obviously, but like you said, he's done more for the Red Sox, I think, than any player in almost their history. Just the way he's changed the culture. He came over here. He's a larger-than-life personality. When the Red Sox kind of were buttoned up more like the Yankees, and him, Manny, Pedro, they started bringing some personality to the team, and I think that's what got a lot of us young fans into it. Because our parents, they never saw Red Sox victory. They're always like, they're going to lose. And I'm like, all right, we have Ortiz, we have Manny, we have Pedro, we're going to win. And I think he brought that confidence, that cocky Dominican confidence to the team. And he's just been such a Boston, personality, after the bombings, obviously saying this is our fucking city. I mean, that's legendary. And obviously all the big hits, 0-4 versus the Yankees, home runs. And I think the one that stands out the most to me just in game is probably that grand slam he hit versus the Tigers and going on to the 2013 World Series with Hunter going over the fence and the cop putting his hands up. I just thought that was great. Another big grand slam from Big Papi. I respect players who are great in the postseason because there's no bigger pressure cooker. There's no bigger stage in baseball, and he was always a great playoff hitter. So playoff hits probably stand out the most to me, but he meant so much to the Red Sox and to the city of Boston while he was playing here.
And another thing that I also, when you said that he changed the culture, a big way to see that is when Andrew Benintendi hit his first home run, and Ortiz was the first one on the steps to hug him and everything. And they were saying that on talk radio that even when Benintendi would come into the locker room the first day, Ortiz was the first one to introduce himself and to get him acclimated to the culture. And they were saying that back in the, I think it was Maz that was saying, back in the day, back in the 70s, when you had a rookie that come in, everyone was looking over their shoulder, all scared and just pissed off that this young guy was coming in to try to take their spot, but not Ortiz is not like that. He completely changed that culture in the locker room.
Yeah, he's like a father figure to a lot of the players. And I know he's gotten Hanley to play better this year, and I would put a lot of that on Ortiz just because it's his last year, and I think Hanley wants to win one for Ortiz, not just Hanley, probably the whole team. If he can go out with a World Series win this year, that would probably be – I think he's the best Red Sox of all time. Obviously, I'm a little biased because I lived through this period. We both did, but you have him in the Hall of Fame as the best Red Sox of all time, because I think I do.
Yes, 100%. I mean, you could look at Ted Williams, you could look at Yastrzemski. I mean, but they don't have one World Series ring. It's nowadays it's about the wins, and not only about the wins, but to go with those stats. I mean, he's meant so much to the Sox that he's enabled them to be a championship team and just always a contender. I mean, when you look at Ted Williams and Carl Yastrzemski, they were contenders, but they were never able to help the team get to that level.
Yeah, it's crazy, too, because a lot of those guys from the 2004 team, they didn't have a great breakup with the Red Sox. Manny obviously went to the Dodgers. Pedro ended his career with the Mets. Ortiz has been a Red Sox his whole career. Obviously, being a DH helped him, but I think he's a first-ballot Hall of Famer just because on his playoffs. And, obviously all these people want to argue. Ted Williams, he could see the laces on the ball when he'd hit it. He's a 400 hitter. Yeah, playing when no Dominican guys played, Asian guys played, in the league. All these guys were in the military. I just think in the modern era, Big Papi, I think he's the best Red Sox of all time. I think everyone that watched this whole period would agree he's probably the best Red Sox ever, and I don't think there's a huge argument to be made there.
I mean, I completely agree.
Yeah, so we can move on to the playoff now. It's almost set. As we discussed before the podcast, we're not sure of the wild card tiebreakers, but I think the Tigers still have a chance. The Mariners were eliminated last night. The Mets clinched their wild card, the 4 seed, so they'll be hosting the game. Whether they play the Giants or Cardinals is still up in the air until today. I'm looking at the bracket now. It looks like the Red Sox probably play the Indians in the first round. Then Texas will play either Baltimore, Detroit, or Toronto. And then looks like on the NL side, the Dodgers will be playing the Nationals, and then the Giants or Cardinals will play the Mets, and then they'll obviously play the Cubs, who are fucking train right now. Who do you have moving through after this first round? I think it's one of the most toss-up playoffs we've had in a long time.
Yeah. Well, the Sox, I'm really confident playing against the Indians. That's actually the team I wanted to see first the most. So
yeah, they're beat up.
Yeah, and I mean, Kluber's actually coming back, but he's still going to be pitching injured too. So, I mean, I'm pretty confident there. And then I think Texas is going to run over either the Orioles, Toronto, or Detroit, just because Texas has just been so good this year. And then,
Darvish is looking good too.
Yeah. And then with the Cubs, I also think that whatever team you throw at them, they're going to be able to not have that much of a hard time. I actually think that if they face the Mets, they're going to be have a little bit more of a difficult time just because of how hot the Mets have been. And I really hope the Giants don't make it just because of how they've almost handed away their season and just kind of back-ending into the playoffs.
It's an even year, too.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I'm a little nervous of that, too. But with the Nationals Dodgers, that's gonna be a series.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know who to pick there. I mean, I'm going to go with the Nationals, but I really think that the Dodgers could also come away with that. It's going to be a good series, I think.
Yeah, I'm really confident in the Red Sox. Thank God they got the Indians, especially with their injuries. I think if the Indians were fully healthy, they had Brantley back, and they had their pitching all healthy, I think they'd probably beat the Red Sox. I'm still not confident, though, after Porcel. I think Porcel will pitch well, but Price, his playoff record's been terrible through his career, and the Indians – they have a decent hitting lineup.
Yeah.
They obviously have home field, so we'll see how that goes. Texas, like you said, they're probably the class of the AL. I think they'll beat whoever they play, Detroit, Toronto, or Baltimore, just because I think they can go Hamels, Darvish, and then it doesn't really matter after that. I think their lineup is probably the best in the AL. The NL, like you said, don't let the Giants get in because they go Bumgarner, Cueto. Not a lot of teams can match up to that. Even the Cubs, if they beat the Mets and they come through. The Mets, I think if they get through, I think the Cubs will handle them easily. They want revenge from last year, obviously, when the Cubs were a train and the Mets came in and kind of spoiled their party. And I think, the Nats-Dodgers series should be really interesting. You can have great Scherzer versus Kershaw. I mean, people pay $200 to just see that in a game. So I actually like the Nationals to move through just because I like their lineup a bit more. I look at the standings and I just can't believe the Dodgers are doing what they're doing. Obviously, their pitching is decent, starting pitching, but their lineup is kind of dog shit. So I like the Nationals playing the Cubs, and I think the Cubs get to the World Series this year. And in the AL, I like the Red Sox, and I think they'll face Texas. That will be a tough series because I think the Red Sox struggle versus the Rangers a lot. In my mind, I just see them playing in Texas and losing. So I have Texas and Chicago. They're the 2-1 seeds. It's not, I'm not going out on a limb here, but I think those two play for the World Series. Who do you have?
I mean, like you said, I'm kind of scared seeing if the Red Sox were to play Texas, especially in Arlington, especially with the –
If it was Anaheim, I'd be fine, but Texas kind of scares me.
Especially with that humidity and then Price, having trouble sometimes giving up home runs and –
yeah.
And with that lineup in that type of weather, in that type of stadium is deadly. And I mean, I'd like to see the Red Sox pull it off, but we'd have to be playing like we did the last couple of weeks if they want to make it through, because they're not going to they're not going to have an easy time manufacturing wins. They're going to have to win in convincing fashion, I think. So, I'll say the Red Sox pull it off And
There you go.
yeah, just because I want to, see them. I mean, I
Yeah.
know this is just a gut feeling, but like everything about it scares the shit out of me. But I also think the Cubs, I think they have an easy time getting to the World Series.
That would be a great World Series. Boston, Chicago, with Chicago not winning in so many years and Boston kind of getting there after all those years, they winning theirs in '04.
Yep.
So see if the Cubs can do it. That's the World Series that Major League Baseball is rooting for. They don't want a
Yeah.
fucking Texas Nationals World Series. They want Boston, Chicago. I mean, that would be great for their ratings. So I think that's what Rob Manfred's rooting for as well. So I would love to
Yeah.
see that. I think that's the perfect World Series to cap off this season.
It would also be great for Theo Epstein's legacy too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, he would love that. He would love beating the Red Sox and John Henry and all those guys that he kind of grew sour with, Larry Lucchino. So, yeah, those are our World Series picks. And who do you have winning it? If it's Red Sox, Cubs, who do you got?
I'd have to say Cubs.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if they make it to the World Series. And I mean, it all depends how they get there too. Because my next point is I'm a big believer in momentum, and if they steamroll through the first two rounds, and I could see them having no problem, just because.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but again, like I said about momentum, it's depending on the Red Sox. I mean, you see them win 11 games in a row; they could do it just as easily too, and they're beating on teams and they're winning against aces that are just like they're making them look like the fourth or fifth starter for a team. So I mean, I'm all about momentum. So I like to see how the first two rounds play out to really see
injuries and whatnot too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had Texas and Cubs. I think this is Texas's year. You know, they made it a while back a couple times, and they just didn't have the lineup. I think they didn't have the pitching. I think everything's kind of measured up for them this year. I love their lineup. I like their starting pitching. Their bullpen is still a question mark to me. But the Cubs, I think they want it too much, and I think that kind of hurts teams in the playoffs, wanting it too much. You know, if it is Red Sox Cubs, I think the Red Sox will win it. I just think they have this mental chip over the Cubs. They have it over Joe Madden. I just think, you know, Theo Epstein wants it so bad, and the Cubs players want it so bad for him, and the fans of Chicago. I just think Boston, and when Boston gets in, they don't get eliminated early in a lot of playoffs.
Yeah.
Like they usually go pretty deep. So if Boston can get on a roll, like you said, and get the momentum going, I think they'll go all the way. Whether the Cubs beat them, that's up in the air. Obviously, like you said, we have to look at the first two rounds, but it should be an exciting playoffs to watch.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Well, so with that, we'll leave you guys. Last day of the season. This will be released on Monday, so subscribe on iTunes to the EFIS. Thanks for joining me, Nate. Rest in peace, Jose Fernandez, and hopefully they can win Big Poppy's last game today, last regular season game.
Yeah, let's hope so.
All right, awesome.